Ben McKee, West Rucker, Go Vols 24/7 here inside of Thompson-Boling Arena at Food City Center following Tennessee's 81-76 win over Vanderbilt, a game that looked quite interesting in the first half, did not look good at all. Interesting is putting it too kindly. Down 13 at halftime. The defense was abysmal in the first half. I thought the effort was not good whatsoever in the first half either, but whatever Rick Barnes and the players and the coaches said at halftime, which Chaz Lanier and Zakai Ziegler said the tone wasn't like you would think everybody would be screaming at one another. It was just kind of a normal tone, and they understood what needed to change, and they certainly did that in the second half.
Yeah, it's like that old video that used to make the rounds like a decade ago. It was like, thought they had us in the first half, I'm not going to lie. It was bad, and I think the first thing you have to do is give credit to Vanderbilt for the way it played. It did play with energy. It did win those loose balls. It got almost all the 50-50s. It was up 21-9 on the glass at one point. I mean, it was one-way traffic, and that was the second time because they did that to Tennessee for most of the game in Nashville too. So you would think after three halves, the Tennessee would learn something about that Vanderbilt team, and they did. And Tennessee, to its credit, it's a 40-minute game, came out in the second half and did what it needed to do. And that's one of those things, Ben, that if they take the right message from that first half and they actually apply it, this will be a good thing. But in the meantime, it was definitely a frustrating first half.
It was, and I thought one of the biggest differences in the second half, I'm stating the obvious here, but Zakai Ziegler was phenomenal in the second half. Didn't score in the first half, 22 in the second half, a game high 22 points. He was terrific shooting the basketball, getting to the rim, facilitating. He was Zakai Ziegler, and it was funny to hear him and Rick talk about some of their conversations throughout the game where Rick and Zakai acknowledged it. Like, Rick challenged him in ways he typically doesn't because that's what it was going to take for him to snap out of it, I guess, today.
Yeah, it's a long season, right? And you go through ups and downs, and, late in the season, everybody this is that time where it's not quite the business end, but like it kind of is. It's right in that in between where you're tired, but you don't have that, the postseason's coming kind of vibe. You need something in your legs sometimes, and you hate to say it that way, but it's kind of the truth. Some guys just, you don't have great days, and you need a little bit of something to push you through the doldrums. And, those guys know each other as well as any player and coach you're going to see that aren't like biologically father and son, you know what I mean? So they got on the same page. It took them a while, but, Rick got what he wanted out of Zakai, and Zakai was fine with it.
Yeah, another key player in today's game, Chaz Lanier, and I thought Chaz was one of the lone bright spots in the first half. He was really good in the first half, 13 points, a team high. I think it might have been a game high as well. Really efficient shooting the basketball, just really good on both ends of the floor. And Rick acknowledged post-game that in totality, it was one of Chaz's best games of the year, something that you and I have talked about this week just because of his overall impact, not just shooting the basketball.
Yeah, I mean, but it's certainly one of those deals where it has to be frustrating for him in a certain sense because he does get fouled a lot. Like, he gets his jersey. If you go back and watch film, Rick Barnes is not kidding. His jersey gets held, it gets tugged. He does not get space anywhere. And you see why, because there was a possession in the second half where Lanier had been covered like white on rice for the entire day. And for a half a second, Vanderbilt lost track of him. And he got about this much separation, and he drilled a three from well behind the line. That's why people do that to him. And if they're going to let you do it, you should do it. But to his credit, he fought through that. He kept making plays. He kept a positive attitude and kind of the chill way that he is. And Tennessee doesn't win that game without him in five for sure.
Yeah, my last big takeaway from today's win is just the execution at the end of the game. Tennessee makes its final 7 shots. In crunch time, and several of those shots were 2-point game, 3-point game, a couple of minutes out, a 4-point game, to where the game was still very much in reach, and Tennessee executed flawlessly. When in their losses this season, that's kind of been the conversation. Okay, they're losing closely outside of the loss at Florida, and they're not executing in the final minutes in crunch time. That was different today. They executed, and I liked what Zakai said. It wasn't just that they made their last 7 shots, it's that the offense was executed to where it was generating open shots, which is that makes you much more happy because the offense is working, because shots can be a little bit up and down.
Yeah, I mean, coaches can scheme you open. They can't put the ball in the bucket for you. You got to do that yourself. But I wrote this a couple days ago. I'm not hiding from it. I said when Tennessee has to rely exclusively on its offense late in games, Tennessee's in trouble. They look like they've been in trouble in those situations. And sometimes it's better in this building. That helps, certainly. There's no question about it. And eventually they'll have to do that away from this building. But in terms of today, I mean, they did what they needed. They got the plays. They executed them well. I mean, they were down by 16 points in the second half and won that basketball game and led for most of the final few minutes. So, I mean, you can't sit here and like we are, deservedly so, scalding them for that first half without equally saying, hey, that was a hell of a job in the second half, and on the balance of 40 minutes, you deserve to win the game. So there are more positives than negatives in this game, and that's certainly one of the biggest positives, but you got to clean up the other stuff if you want to get where they want to get.
Yeah, as bad as the first half was effort-wise, the second half, the effort was phenomenal.
The crowd, too, big credit to the crowd.
Yeah, and Vanderbilt and Tennessee do not like each other, and you could tell on several occasions today. Tennessee will have
Can I say I like Jason Edwards, though? Because that dude can play, man. That dude is electric.
He certainly can play. That's a very good basketball team on the other bench. Tennessee will have a off week. They don't have a midweek game coming up. Each team has a week in the season in which they don't have a midweek game. This is Tennessee's turn. Much needed. Just played a physical basketball game. You know you have a physical basketball game awaiting you next Saturday in College Station against Texas A&M. So that's the next time Tennessee will be in action. In the meantime, we've got all of your Tennessee basketball coverage up at GoVols247.com. He's Wes Rucker. I'm Ben McKee.